Well, ladies and gentlemen, how's everybody doing tonight here at the Sheraton? Can you hear me out there? Come on, guys. We had a winning season. Can we clap a little bit louder? Plus, Roger Chappell's in the house. You always got to clap when Roger's in the house. We wanted to welcome everybody to another edition of SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin. I'm Rob Hipp. Thanks for joining us. This is the season finale as we wrap up and look back at the season. But, hey, before we get to that, we've got to talk about a game that Southwestern – another great victory last Saturday as Southwestern University defeated Texas Lutheran at home 59-35. Let's give Southwestern a big round of applause for that victory. We're going to go ahead and watch some of those highlights now. Those of you here at the Sheraton, feel free to watch on the screen. Those of you on the YouTube screen, you'll be able to enjoy them as well. Please join me as we look back at Texas Lutheran. Fans starting to chomp their feet here. Get a little pop and roll on a 3rd down and 8 from the Southwestern 40. Over the middle, it's intercepted by the Pirates on the left side, and he is going to take this one back to the house. Running all the way down is Aaron Robinson, and Robinson's got a 60-yard interception return for a touchdown. The Pirates defense coming alive here in the first quarter, baby. In the first quarter, baby. For the Pirates now. Ball remains on the Texas Lutheran 18, left hash, empty backfield. Hover is going to spin around. Great mobility by Hover across the 10 on the left side, and he's close to a Southwestern first down, and he's got it. The Pirates needed 10, they got 11, first down and goal. They're going to go for the field goal here, a 21-yard field goal attempt. Come off the feet of Will Hurst. The hold is down. The left kick is up on its way, and it hits the flag as it goes through. And it is a 21-yard field goal good for the Pirates. Extends their lead 17-0. 13:03 to go here in the second quarter. First down and 10 from their own 36. Hover again over the middle. Brandenburg, low catch. He's got it at the 40 of Texas Lutheran. Dagger after dagger by the Pirates this afternoon. And they've got another first down at the Texas Lutheran 38. In motion is Henderson. That'll leave Hover wide in a backfield by himself, being chased. Right side pass. Ants got it at the 29-yard line. And that's another Pirate first down. Hover shotgun. Henderson to his right. Man in motion is Bray. Bray goes from left to right. Quick pass over to Brandenburg. Brandenburg breaks through the 5, and Brandenburg's got the touchdown. Wow, what a play by David Brandenburg. Got a receiver to the right, one to the left. Hover's going to take it again. Goes to the left, goes back inside. He's got the 1-yard touchdown run. Fred Hover. And the Pirates have a 30-7 lead. Third down and 3 from the Southwestern 42. Texas Lutheran trying to keep the chains moving, trailing 31-7. The handoff to Matthews, dodges through one, and he's tackled in the backfield. What a play by the Pirates. And getting the tackle was Evan Villastrigo. He has had a great defensive afternoon for the Southwestern Pirates. First down and 10 for Southwestern in the red zone now at the 17. of Texas Lutheran on the right hash. Hover shotgun. Markel Henderson to his right. In motion is Max Patton, who checked in moments ago. Hover, pump fake. Brandenburg has it, the spin move, the touchdown. 17 yards, Brandenburg with his second one tonight.
So we played really well. They are a good team, and so that's a decisive score against a very good team. It's a great way to end the season, and it clinches our third straight winning season. So since we've had a full team, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, we've had a winning season every year, and that's something that's important to our program.
Well, once again, let's give it up for Southwestern on the victory, and a great job by the Pirates. And, hey, I wanted to give a little special recognition very quickly, Coach, before we dig in. Carl Schoening, who's here tonight, he's the SNSHN. Hey, he does those highlight videos. He's my business partner. Thank you, Carl. Great job all season on those awesome
Thank you, Carl.
highlight videos. We had a little glitch tonight, and Carl came here from Austin to hand deliver them. So it's great stuff. Well, as we go back again, Coach, and look back at this Texas Lutheran game, Southwestern finishes the season 6-4 overall, 5-4 in the American Southwest Conference. Another offensively powerful game for Southwestern, 447 passing yards. Unbelievable. Let's clap for that. I think that is amazing through the air. 168 rushing. Fred Hover named the ASC Co-Offensive Player of the Week. I definitely wanted to make sure that we give Fred his due credit, as he had a great game, and with that ASC honor, received that earlier in the year as well. Well, Coach, first of all, congratulations on the win and closing out another winning season at Southwestern. Fred Hover, simply unstoppable versus Texas Lutheran, in a good school at that with Texas Lutheran University. Just wanted to ask you, how impressed were you with the play of your quarterback?
Pretty impressed, and of course we count on him to do a lot. And I'm his quarterback coach. I played quarterback, and so not that there's a rivalry or competition, but I will admit that the most passes I completed in a college game was 25. In this game, he completed 30, so he's got me on that. But when we play accuracy games in spring football, I'll still beat him. So, Fred, you can count on that. We're going to do some accuracy games in spring so I can keep my 40-year-old ego going, I guess. Fred did a fantastic job, but it's a team effort. We had so many really good offensive plays. David Brandenburg with 200 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns, breaking tackles. Of course, that adds up. We saw A.J. Daniels with some really good plays, and a bunch of guys chipped in. We had so many guys catch balls. I'm going to end up forgetting someone, but Tavon Gwynn had some great plays. We saw Ant with good plays. Landry Bray, a lot of guys did that. And our offensive line did a good job. We ended up with 440-whatever passing yards because they were in the don't let Fred run defense. They completely abandoned what they've done on defense. They've done that against us the last 2 years. Last year we scored 50-some points against them also. For whatever reason, by the time we get to Texas Lutheran, we're really on a roll. And talking to their coach pregame, he knew that. And I'm not going to say we're in their head, but they definitely knew that we were playing well offensively and doing some nice things on defense. And they changed their defense. When a team changes their defense for one game, it usually favors the offense because we're going to be better at what we do than what they do. Denison, who I'm going to talk about later on in the show, changed their defense to try to play us. It didn't work out in their favor. Howard Payne tried to change their defense for one game, didn't work out. Texas Lutheran tried to change their defense for one game, didn't work out. But that's a credit to what our offensive guys were doing, that they wanted to do that. And they had so many guys loaded up. It's almost one of those games where you wish you could illustrate the highlights and show how many guys were in tight to try to stop Fred from running the ball, and they tried to stop our triple option offense, that they just basically dared us to throw it, and we're happy to do it, and we did a really good job in that aspect of the game.
And, Coach, talking about that passing game, and it all starts on the offense. Of course, Fred couldn't do what he does without the offensive line, giving him the ability to pass the ball throughout the game. Were you surprised at Southwestern's passing ability? We know that Fred can pass. We know that already. But as far as the numbers that Southwestern put up, and you look at a Texas Lutheran team that came into this game and really, no pun intended, some folks thought it was going to be a dogfight. Southwestern really did a great job. Were you kind of surprised that Southwestern was able to pass the ball as effectively as they were and rush the ball as effective as they were against Texas Lutheran?
To be honest, I wasn't. We're playing our best football of the season offensively, and some seasons you're like, well, you know what, it's okay, the season's done. Now we have a season going on this year where I wish we had a couple more weeks. We're really hitting our stride. But you have to remember, too, that the things we did in our passing game is a cumulative effect of what we do offensively, what our philosophy is. And our philosophy is if you can run for 1,000,000, you can throw for whatever you want to. And so Texas Lutheran, after watching a whole season's worth of film, said, we have to stop them from running for 1,000,000. And by doing that, they opened up passing game where we could throw whatever we want to. So I guess it's a fruition of where our offensive philosophy is. If teams have to gear up and stop you from running and commit extra players and keep their safeties tight and keep their linebackers tight, it's going to open things up on the perimeter. And to the credit of all of our players across the board offensively, they did a really good job of executing what was in front of us.
I've got several questions that relate to kind of the overall recap of the season. You've got a special presentation that you'll go over, so we'll talk about that at the last segment after your presentation, Coach. But still digging into the Texas Lutheran victory, we've talked a lot about offense. We've got to talk about the defense now. As we go through 3 quarters, Southwestern's defense held Texas Lutheran, a high-powered, a high-octane, call it the 93 Supreme if you want. But they only held them to 7 points through 3 quarters. Of course, 28 points scored by the Bulldogs in the 4th quarter. So if you go back and look at the final score, you say, well, Texas Lutheran had an opportunity, but really Southwestern started some of the second-string guys, and we saw some changes there in the 4th. You have to be impressed with the defense as well. They played very well, Coach.
It wasn't that we wanted to give up some late touchdowns, but we had such a great effort. We got up 59-14, and I think – our football team, they're very realistic in the fact when I took Fred out of the game, they knew it was in the bag. And so you almost can't help but know that there's going to be a little bit of a letdown, that when things are that much in control and you get up by that big of a lead. The bigger thing to worry about in the 4th quarter is the fact that we came out after halftime. We had a big lead at halftime. And I talked with Chuck. Chuck asked me at the halftime interview, are we going to be able to come out and maintain it? And I said, well, I don't know. We're going to go in the locker room and try, and we're going to try to keep them focused and keep them excited. And they came out and they scored and opened it up even bigger lead. So to get out to that lead was great. And our defense did play fantastic. And I think Coach Kriesel, our defense coordinator, had a great plan to play the style of defense that we played in that game. We really knew when you get to game 10, you have 9 games on each other. There's no secrets. You're not hiding anything. You don't have anything you've been saving. And I think we had their body of work, and we knew what their most dangerous things were, and we deployed our personnel to take away some of their things that they were going to be good at. And, of course, our offense and defense played into each other. Our offense scored on the first drive. The defense gets the pick 6. And then things kind of snowballed together, and things worked really well. But our defense did a fantastic job. Austin Matthews, our running back, is one of the top rushers in the league. He came in 100 yards or so away from 1,000 yards, and we held him way below that. He didn't get to 1,000, and their quarterback had probably some high aspirations for a good game, and we kept him in check as well. And just can't say enough about what our guys did defensively. An up and down year for them overall. Some good performances, some rough performances, but they certainly finished off the season really well.
Well, as we ask a couple of last questions, you actually answered all the in-between questions that I had, Coach, and I know you've got a great presentation to go over. What did you tell the team after the game? You come off of another win, another high-scoring win. This game had a lot different tone than the previous game. Of course, Southwestern, a lot of mental mistakes in that game. This one, they cleaned that up. What did you tell the team after the game, Coach?
Well, it was short. We actually didn't go into the locker room and do a debrief. And with the season being over, we didn't come in over the weekend on Sunday and do our debrief. So when I called the team over, I wanted to let them have some time to take some pictures and do things for the seniors and with their families. And I just told them congratulations to the seniors and congratulations to everyone for a 3rd consecutive winning season. We've had a winning season every year. We've had a full football team, and I think that's a point of pride for our program, something for us to aspire to. So we haven't done a whole lot. We'll have our year-end season wrap meeting next Monday night, and we'll actually go back and we'll talk about this game just like it was the Sunday after the game, and we'll decompress. There's some things I want to talk about, good and bad, kind of reset, where we finished up the season and just the debrief of that. So to answer your question, what I told them, I haven't told them yet. It was just enjoy the day and congrats to everyone and go take some pictures and have fun and relish in the great day that we had. But it sure was a lot of fun demolishing those guys, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. From us in the broadcast booth, we were having fun. And overall, we had an exciting season on our first year with Southwestern. Of course, we'll talk about the season here in our second segment. Normally, we bring up Gist, but since this is the wrap-up show, Coach Austin has a special presentation that we'll go over. We will step aside, take a quick break. We'll get that presentation ready. Stay with us, friends. SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin continues here on SHN Sports. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for staying with us here on SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin. Rob Hipp here now on your screen. Those of you, of course, here in the audience can see us, but those on the YouTube stream, Coach Austin wants to go over several accomplishments and other things. So, Coach, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk for a while, and if you don't like hearing me talk, then I guess you're watching the wrong broadcast. But there's a lot of really notable accomplishments that happened this year and things that we want to recognize. So I'm going to go through in a couple different segments, and we'll take a break. But I just can't wait to talk about our players and some of our players' accomplishments throughout the season. So we're going to start off by just recognizing, I mentioned this before, our third consecutive winning season. And we're very proud, and we have something to aspire to, that every year we've had a full football team. Freshmen, what I mean by that is freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. We've had a winning season, and we won a conference championship in there. Of course, when we didn't have a full football team, we got beat up because 18-year-olds don't beat up 22-year-olds. And if we do, then there's something wrong with those 22-year-olds. But when we've had a full team, we've done really, really well. I also want to talk a little bit about our senior class, because they came in 2015 when we still had no seniors. So they were part of this group that came in basically buying into what Southwestern football could be and what we could be. So their first year, they were 2-8. And, of course, we lost some guys along the way. It's not a huge senior class, only 8 of them. Now, a few more guys came through. Fred Hover, for example, was a part of this recruiting class. And Fred probably wasn't going to be our starting quarterback the first year. He was going to play some with Brian Hickstill, of course, is a professional quarterback right now. So I had I guess it's brilliant now, dumb then idea that Fred could play some receiver for us while he learned our offense, of course. So Fred goes to play receiver, and he tears his ligament in his hand the first day he's doing it, and he misses the whole season. Of course, it's crazy like a fox, because Fred Hover as a fifth-year senior next year is going to be ridiculous. So instead of Fred being done now, he gets another year to learn and to grow and to get even better. So it's going to be a real blessing to have him now. So as sophomores, they won the conference championship, and of course, they've had back-to-back 6 and 4 years. So they ended up as winners. They ended up 21-19, and our rising senior class right now is 19 and 11. The best 3-year period of Southwestern football ever was 1936, 37, and 38, where they went 23, 10, and 1, and that is the only other 3-year period where they've had 3 consecutive winning seasons. So next year, our goal is to establish this as the elite, the high tide for Southwestern football, both in terms of winning, but in consecutive winning seasons. Back in our Sun Bowl era, our other really good era of football, 1942, 43, 44, they were actually 16 and 14. They had a couple good years in there as well. But we're really looking at, I think, a historic period of Southwestern football that we're trying to get to. So 7 wins this next year would tie the most wins in a 3-year period. 6 wins this next year would tie the most wins in a 4-year period. And that's what we're kind of, not that that's our goal, but that's one of the things on the horizon, and we're not playing for that. But, again, recognition to our seniors and also our rising seniors who are 2 years away from being, as I mentioned, among the winningest classes of Southwestern football. So let's look at some national rankings this year, which is fun. We get to do this for the first time. There's 247 teams in Division III, and I've mentioned before that there's a really big lag. You get good, and then 3 years later you get in the national rankings, because there's so many people ranking teams across the country that takes a while. We topped out in the Bennett rankings, which is a computer ranking, at number 26 in week 3, and I think that was appropriate. That's and what the Bennett ranking takes into account is your current record, your previous record against common opponents, things like that. And then we got into the human polls, which is really tough to do. We entered the D3Football.com poll at number 42 in week 2. And then we entered the AFCA poll in their first week at number 41. We dropped a little bit after a loss. And right now we're actually ranked number 41 in the nation again to end the season. And that ranking is based on a couple things. We beat Denison, who will come up a bunch in my presentation. Denison won the North Coast Conference, so we're 8-2. And they really demolished their conference. Their one loss was a 6 overtime epic game against a top 10 team in Wittenberg. And then we also beat Texas Lutheran, who's also ranked. So 2 wins over ranked opponents. Very good showing in our league. So to be 41st out of 247 teams puts us in the top 16% right now, and I think that's a fair grade. The A football teams are Hardin-Simmons, and the A football teams are Mary Hardin-Baylor, and then the B football teams across the country. I'd love to say we're an A, but right now we're a B football team. We're a top 20% team. So that's kind of where we're at as we move through.
And let's give a round of applause. You just mentioned top 16%. Unbelievable, Coach. I think that's great. And it just shows how the program is being built over the years and in this tough ASC conference.
Well, if you want to clap for top 16, that's okay. I don't think any of us are happy with it. But I am a guy that is a moral victory guy. And we're entering a new era for our football team. And when we entered the polls, I think it was hard for us. To be nationally ranked, I think, took a little bit of our focus. So we're going to have to learn how to play as a team that's in the national rankings and a team that's expected to win. But that's a fun era to go into. And when you listen to Nick Saban talk, all he talks about is how do you play with expectations and how do you play when you're being chased. You're the hunted, not the hunter. And that's what we're looking to now. So now we're going to talk two things about the American Southwest Conference. Our all-conference team will be announced tomorrow, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about that. Remind me, Rob, we'll come back and circle to that. I can't give any specifics yet, but I can talk a little bit about what I expect from our all-conference team. So I looked at how we finished in the conference, and let's talk about some offenses. There are 5 offenses in our conference that are in the top 25 in the nation. Mary Hardin-Baylor, Hardin-Simmons, East Texas Baptist, Texas Lutheran, and ourselves. And I didn't put ourselves 5th because it's how we shake out. But there are 5 elite offenses in our conference. It's ridiculous. We talked about the receivers we play every week. And at the same time, people are talking about we had to play Fred Hover this week. We had to play Kalen Heim this week. Did you see what David Brandenburg did to us this week? It's just a ridiculous conference for offense. And, of course, that mirrors Texas high school football. It's a ridiculous market for offense. I kind of wish they'd teach some kids how to play defense every now and then. That would help us in recruiting. But Texas loves offense. And it's high school up through the Big 12. Because that's who we produce. So for whatever reason, Texas high school coaches favor offense. They put their athletes on offense versus defense. That's fine, and that's what you're going to see, whether it's our conference, America Southwest in Division III, the Lone Star Conference in Division II is an elite offensive conference, and then the Big 12 in Division I is an elite offense conference. And, of course, everyone that follows Division I football, they kind of joke about the Big 12 being great offensively and not great defensively. That may or may not be true. It's just you have so many great offensive guys in all these conferences. So some of the things that we excelled in, number 1 in time of possession. It's not a goal of ours necessarily. We don't slow the game down. In fact, we didn't huddle once the whole second half of our season. But what we do is we get a ton of first downs. We are generally very good at running the football. We change personnel a lot, which means that you're not snapping the ball every 4 or 5 seconds. But time of possession has been something we've been very good at. And, of course, when you have the ball, it's very difficult for other teams to score. So that's not bad. Things we finished in the top 3 in rushing offense. We were number 1 last year. Our offensive line changes. Played into that a little bit. Folks are wondering about my voice. I've got a little bit of a cold. So the season hit. During the season, you can't be sick. When the season ends, your body just says, hey, dude, you're tired. So about Monday, my body said, hey, dude, you're tired. So if I hear a couple sips of water being taken, that's what's going on with that. But rushing offense, we've been very good the last 2 years. Being able to run, we talked about this talking about Texas Lutheran, plays into our pass efficiency. When TLU changes their defense and says we can't let Fred Hover run against us, that opens some really good play-action pass opportunities, and we've been very efficient in that. We get a lot of first downs because we're not one-dimensional. We can run, we can pass, and so we've been a very good job on that. Red zone offense is actually one of the things we're going to finish very high in the nation in. Our goal is 90%. You got to be 9 for 10 down there. We were close to our goal of 88%. Total offense, we were at 495 last year, 435 this year. Continuing to move the ball a lot, get a lot of yards. And third down conversions, I think we did okay, and we finished 4th in our conference at a hair under 40%. But we're playing, again, some very good offenses and very good defenses. You have to put this into context also. Mary Hardin-Baylor doesn't have to play their defense. because that would hurt their offensive stats a lot. Hardin Simmons doesn't have to play their defense. That would hurt their stats a lot. We had to play all those guys. East Texas Baptist doesn't have to play their offense. So these things go back and forth as you contextualize it. So I think we did some pretty good things on offense, and now we'll switch over and talk about some defense. So I just got done mentioning that there's 5 elite offenses, and of course that plays into statistics. I think the best way to analyze the quality of our defense and the quality of the defenses in our conference is to maybe go back and talk a little bit about the Denison game. So I mentioned that Denison was our conference champion. They're playing in the playoffs this weekend. They're playing Mount Union, who's one of the top teams in the country. Denison in their conference games, their 9 conference games, scored 46.2 points a game. We held them to 21. They allowed 19.1 points a game, and we scored 42. Let me repeat that again. We beat them 42-21. We handled them. It really wasn't that much of a contest of a game. In their conference, they outscored their opponents 46.2 to 19.1 in winning their conference. So how good are we? We're pretty darn good.
We can clap for that,
We're pretty
Coach.
darn good.
We can clap for that.
We're pretty darn good. Denison scored 34 or more points in 7 of their 9 games, and they allowed less than 20 in 7 of their 9 games. They allowed 27 in one game, and then I mentioned they had this crazy 6 overtime game against Wittenberg that ended up 68-66, where they went toe-to-toe with a team that was in the top 10 in the country. Denison's very good, and I think after our game, I heard a player on our team in the locker room say, we don't get to play these weak Ohio teams anymore. We got to play Texas teams. I said, time out, guys. These guys are really good, and now we can contextualize just how good that win was, beating the conference champion. And when you look at how well they did, 46.2 to 19.1, it was their margin. We did some really good things. So within our conference, of course, we're playing. Now, we didn't have to play our offense, but we played 4 other elite offenses. We ended up number 1 in red zone defense. And to hold teams to 64% scoring in the red zone is really good. 3rd in rushing defense at less than 100 yards a game, 92.6 is another very good performance. And then we're 4th in some categories, scoring defense. It would have been nice to have not given up the 28 fourth quarter points, because that would have gone down quite a bit. We probably would have finished 3rd in scoring defense. But our sacks went up this year, which was good to see. As I mentioned, we changed our style of defense. I mentioned not today, but throughout the season. We changed our style of defense, and that allowed us to put on a little bit more pressure. And we held teams to a pretty moderate amount of first downs themselves, especially considering the conference that we play in, where offense is at a big premium. When you look at some special teams and some entire team rankings, really it was not an outstanding special teams year for us. And if you want to know how good a team's athletes are, look at their special teams and look at their special teams rankings. And the fact that we're playing so many young guys, I think, shows what a young team we were, and it shows in our special teams rankings. But we got half our onside kicks, which was as good as anybody did, at least number 2 in our conference. And we forced our opponents into 80 yards a game of penalties. We saw in the last part of the year, for example, we drew a lot of pass interference penalties as teams tried to stop our play-action passing game, which was good. We also had games where we generated pass rush, where we forced teams into holds. So good aggressive play can lead your opponents into some good penalties. The opponent game lows, our next slide, I thought was interesting. We had just a monumentally good game with our rush defense against Saul Ross. We talked about that before. We held them to negative 10 yards rushing, and no one else held anyone to a negative game. As good as Mary Hardin Baylor is and Hardin Simmons and TLU, they never held anyone to negative rushing yards. So they had negative 10 rushing yards, negative 0.5 per rush, and they had 0 first downs rushing in the whole game. Another interesting one, in our McMurray game, they were called for 1 penalty, which is the fewest they've been called for all year, while we were called for 16. And you can take from that what you will. I'll just point out that, penalties were 16-1 in that game, for what it's worth. Some individual statistical leaders. We'll look at offense, and of course we had another great season from Fred Hover. And I guess maybe now I'll throw in talking about our all-conference team. If you want a stone-cold lead pipe lock, you can take Fred Hover to the bank as the first-team all-conference quarterback in a conference full of really good quarterbacks. Brian Baca, the quarterback at East Texas Baptist, for example, is among the leaders in the nation in total offense. Mary Hardin Baylor's quarterbacks, the two that they played a lot, are just incredibly efficient. Hardin Simmons, quarterback Hooper, came in about second game of the year and did a fantastic job. It's an elite offensive conference, and there's some elite quarterbacks. And before the team's announced, I'm going to tell you that it's a stone-cold lead pipe lock that Fred Hover will repeat as the first-team all-conference quarterback in the ASC. And if I'm wrong, then there's something wrong with my colleagues. I guess maybe they're mad at me or something. But he is the elite of the elite. So some of the things that he did this year is number 1 in our conference in rushing attempts, number 2 in rushing touchdowns, number 2 in total offense, number 2 in scoring. And as you look at this, he is doing the job of a running back and a quarterback at the same time, because the total offense leader was a quarterback at ETBU that throws it 60 times a game, and he gained about 20 more yards than him. The rushing touchdown leader was running back at Hardin Simmons, who runs the ball 25 times a game, and he was 1 behind him. So he talk about a dual threat and a guy that can do it all. Fred definitely did that. Number 2 in pass efficiency, Tavon Gwynn, our freshman wide receiver, had an exceptional year, second in the conference in yards per reception at 21.5. Fred was third in passing touchdowns. Anthony Stevens finished third in yards per reception at 20.8. Great to see him really step up this season. Now we had 3 guys here you'll see listed that didn't have enough to meet the minimum, but they generated some big plays. Kalen Heim, before he was hurt, Devin Shaw, and Eric Ovalle. I know there's debate about how to do Eric's name, Eric Ovalle. Remember from one broadcast, at least I heard about that. Fred Hover ended up with another great rushing season, 95 yards a game. Kalen Heim, before he was injured, had 97.2, and he didn't play in enough plays or games to officially make the list, but he would have been the number 3 or number 4 rusher in the conference also. And Fred's 4th in passing at 201.2 yards per game. Heading over to defense, Aaron Robinson was second in the conference in solo tackles, and he was all over the field. And tackle stats are never quite right. So I went a little bit below top 2 or 3 because in defensive categories, there's very few categories. So when you look at guys who are the top 10, those are guys, and there's probably, just as you look at it, if everyone has 11 starters on 10 teams, there's 110 guys vying for it. So you can look at it that way. There's 110 guys competing for these statistics. So for Aaron to be second out of 110 guys, and of course teams will rotate, we rotate, so there's more. But there's a minimum of 110 guys competing for these categories. So Aaron was second in solo tackles. Josiah Minifield had another really good season. 10 passes defended. Hayden Smith, number 3 in fumble recoveries. Clay Anthony, number 5 in forced fumbles. Those are some outstanding special teams performances. Aaron Robinson, 6th in total tackles. Jackson Reese, freshman corner, and Rosie Hernandez, sophomore safety, both had 3 interceptions. Hayden Smith, 8th with 9 total tackles for loss. 8th in total tackles for loss, and solo tackles, solo sacks. So Hayden Smith, 8th and 9th in those areas. And then Jackson Reese and Rosie Hernandez again in passes defended. We're our marquee performances where guys, again, out of at least 110 guys, we're in the top 10 in our conference. Say something while I take a drink of water, Rob. You're up.
Well, hey, you guys enjoying the food tonight here at the Sheraton? Let's give a round of applause to the Sheraton. And, of course, as the show goes on, we'll also thank our sponsors. And, Coach, whenever you'd like to take a break, we can break for sponsors.
No, we're good. We'll finish the ASC stuff, and then we'll take a quick break.
We'll keep rolling.
I told Rob, be ready for your easiest show of the night. Just wind me up and let me go. Because I just want to talk about how great our players are doing. So I love this page. This page is individual player game highs. These are the best performances statistically of anyone in our conference. And when you look at this, you're going to understand why I'm telling you that Fred Hover is the best football player in our conference. Total touchdowns responsible for, Fred had the top 2. He had 7 touchdowns against Howard Payne. He had 6 against Texas Lutheran. In total offensive games, Fred had the top 2. He had 582 against Texas Lutheran and 446 against Howard Payne. In total plays, Fred had the top 2, meaning running and passing attempts total, 71 against Texas Lutheran, 70 against Howard Payne. Rushing yards, Fred had the number 1 game of the conference season, 287 against Belhaven. And that wasn't because they're easy to run on. They actually loaded the box and played man coverage, and we were able to crack it repeatedly. We were able to block it up and get Fred through for a ton of yards. And, of course, it was a windy day. And so the whole first half, I think we threw 2-3 passes because of the game conditions. Rushing attempt, Fred had the second best with 36 against Belhaven. Fred, of course, is not one-dimensional. He had the number 2 passing game in the conference with 443 against Texas Lutheran. He had the most passing touchdowns with 5 against Texas Lutheran. He had the longest pass of 91 yards against Howard Payne. He completed the most passes in the game with 30 against TLU. 100% pass completion percentage against McMurray. There's an asterisk by that because he got hurt. Unfortunately, he played 1.5 drives. Yards per attempt and yards per completion against Denison, just amazingly efficient. 25 yards per attempt, 35 yards per completion. David Brandenburg with some outstanding play. Number 2 receiving performance of 199 yards against TLU, and the number 1 touchdown performance with 3 touchdowns against TLU, and the longest reception. The 91-yard touchdown reception against Howard Payne. Multiple guys made multiple field goals, but Luke Fierce was 2 for 2 against Louisiana College. You have to have more than 1 attempt to qualify in that category. And Jackson Reese and Rosario Hernandez, I'm sorry, it's a typo, not Henderson, it's Hernandez, both had 2 interceptions in a game. No one had multiple interception touchdown returns, but Joel Heideco and Aaron Robinson both did that this year. Fred also had the highest all-purpose yards game, which is rushing and receiving, so he ran for 286. We also threw him a pass for 19 yards to have a nice round 306 against Belhaven. And Hayden Smith had the number 2 sack performance with 2 against Denison. Some team game highs, where our team did better than any other team did in a single game. Passing performance number 2 against TLU. Passing TDs the best against TLU. Longest pass against Howard Payne. Passes completed, we had the second biggest against TLU. Our yards, again, per pass and per completion against Denison were awesome. We also had the top 2 performances in yards per completion. We had 32.6 against Howard Payne. Field goal conversions against Louisiana College. There were very few 2-point attempts in our conference, so the one we made against Howard Payne tied us for the most. And if anyone's wondering why we went for a 2-point conversion against Howard Payne in the fourth quarter, it's because I got tired of watching us roll snaps back. Our short snapper got ejected from the game, and we missed a few and just wasn't working well, so we decided we're just going to go for 2. Aaron Robinson's interception return against TLU was the longest of the year. Unfortunately, we had some negatives. We lost 5 fumbles against UMHB and 4 against ETBU, and we talked about that during the season. That's not going to work. We gave the most sacks against ETBU, and we had a crazy 8-turnover game, never seen anything like it against UMHB. And we had 2 kicks blocked. We got some kick blocking or some kick protection work to do. We had 22 first downs passing last week, which is more than anybody had. I mentioned the don't let Fred run defense. That leads to 22 passing first downs. We mentioned some of the drawing penalties. Howard Payne and Hardin Simmons interfered us a lot. We got to jump off sides a lot and commit some personal fouls, so we drew them into a lot of penalties. Unfortunately, the week after the 16 penalties against McMurray, we did one better and committed 17 against ETBU, and we've talked about that quite a lot during the season, and we had the second worst penalty performance against 163. I'd love to say, Rob, that all these are positive, but you got to take the good and the bad, right? And these penalties are gross, and hopefully we won't have to worry about that next year. We had some great conference awards, as we mentioned. It's there in bold in parentheses. Our all-conference team comes out tomorrow. I think we'll have some really good representation. But 4 guys were named Conference Player of the Week throughout the season. They try to spread these out. Fred Hover could get this about every week. And, in fact, he had 582 yards, and they gave him co-player of the week, which I don't mind. Give it to some, spread it out, give it to some guys, which is fine. So Kalen Hyman, Hayden Smith against Denison were both named player of the week, and Fred Hover against Belhaven and TLU were both named player of the week. Ironically, his 7-touchdown game against Howard Payne was not good enough for player of the week, but as I said, they like to spread these things out a little bit. Let's take a break.
We'll take a break. Stay with us. You guys having a good night tonight so far? Well, as we wrap up the final show here, stay with us. We'll take a quick break. We're going to go over some sponsors. Enjoy your food. We'll be right back here in just a few moments as SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin continues here on SHN Sports. Stay with us, friends. of course, everything this season, we couldn't have made it possible without the wonderful sponsors here at Southwestern University for the football program and other athletics. We want to send a sincere thank you and go over those sponsors one last time this season as we thank our good friends, the platinum level sponsors, Minuteman Press, Waterboy Graphics. Thank you to Ty Nicholson, Ty Gibson, and Blake Nicholson. We appreciate you. Mighty Fine Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. Roger Chappell from Berkshire Hathaway Home Service. Roger in the house. He gets 2 claps tonight. Appreciate you, Roger. Thank you so much for your support. Our good friends at First Texas Bank, Georgetown Jewelry, Ricky Poe, HEB, Mama Foo's Asian House, Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue, and the Sheraton Austin Georgetown Hotel and Conference Center. Our gold sponsors this season, CJ's Catering, Double Dave's Pizza, Primerica Financial Solutions, R Bank, Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union, Schlossky's Austin Eatery, South Star Bank, St. David's, Georgetown Hospital, a top 100 hospital in the nation. Also, our friends at Texel Credit Union and Turnipseed Real Estate Group. The silver sponsors this season, Antioch Georgetown, Chick-fil-A, Georgetown Commercial Properties, Georgetown Shirt Company, Craig and Sandy Mooney. Our bronze sponsors, Be Creative, Boomtown Escapes, thank you Valerie Nicholson, Chisholm Trail Pediatrics, the City of Georgetown, Don Hewlett Chevrolet, Eagles Wings Home Services, Gary Brown CPA, Georgetown Title, the Hillstone at Wolf Ranch Apartments, John F. Lewis CPA, State Farm, Featherstone Agencies, and our good friends at Upstream Investment Partners. All of our sponsors, good friends, we appreciate you. Thank you for your support this season in making these broadcasts and everything with Southwestern University football possible. Let's give them a round of applause one last time this season. Thank you so much. We're going to take another brief break, and we'll finish up the presentation. Stay with us. SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin continues here on SHN Sports.
All right. Well, if you don't like hearing me talk about the accomplishments of our players, as I said, you're in the wrong place, because I'm going to get back into it, and I'm going to talk about how we stack up across the whole NCAA. And of course, in the NCAA, we're talking about 247 teams in our division. So we're looking for things where we're in the top 25%, where we can say we're pretty elite in that. These numbers, let me mention, are going to go up. Because now everyone else has to play all the defenses that we've been playing all year. Somebody's going to have to play Mary Hardin-Baylor every week for the next 6 weeks. Somebody's going to have to play Mount Union. We've been playing this elite schedule with really good defenses all year long. For example, last year we ended the regular season, I think, number 13 in rushing offense. And by the time everybody played UMHB, we ended up number 9 in rushing offense. So as we start off, right now we're number 15 in offensive first downs per game, 17 yards per completion, 21st in time of possession, 36th in both rushing and rushing offense and rushing defense. And again, these stats are going to improve. 39th in total offense, 43rd in pass efficiency, 47th in defensive touchdowns, 47th in run zone defense. I mentioned that was really good this year. 52nd in scoring, 53rd in red zone offense, and 60th in fewest interceptions. And don't forget, Mary Hardin-Baylor's given up 5 points a game this year. And so now people get to play them and let their stats get ruined. Because if you take them off our schedule, then we are definitely going to be even higher in a lot of these team categories. Some individual statistics, and again, these are going to go up throughout the playoffs because teams are going to have to play really good defenses, and they're going to run into some of the buzzsaws and the Hardin-Simmons defenses and UMHB defenses that we've been playing. Fred right now is 3rd in the nation in yards per completion, 11th in rushing touchdowns, 12th in yards per pass, 14th in points scored, 16th in points responsible for, 22nd in total touchdowns, 23rd in total points, 23rd in total offense. That's a stat that's going to go up as teams have to play really good defenses. 29th in scoring, 30th in pass efficiency, and 46th for Hayden Smith in fumbles recovered. And I can't stress enough how the rigor of our schedule affects the stats that we have, and how these numbers will improve when folks get to go up against some of the teams that we get to play against every week. So last year, when you looked at our schedule, there were 5 teams that we played that were in the national rankings. And this year there were 4. So 4 of our 10 teams are in the national rankings, 2 conference champions, 3 playoff teams. To be where we're at and have the individual and team stats that we have are really good. So on we go. Some of the top national performances. Fred's game against TLU was the 4th best total offense game in the nation with 582 yards of offense. His number of plays he was involved in was 8th in the nation. His rushing performance against Belhaven was the 11th best, as well as his all-purpose yards and rushing touchdowns were also in the top 20. So really good there with the NCAA, and of course those things are just going to get better. We're going to talk next about Southwestern records, and we continue to rewrite our record book. And the record book is not just from 2013 on. The records and the stats go all the way back into the 30s. I haven't seen anything in there from the 20s. I don't know if the paper disintegrated or not. It wasn't computerized, obviously. The stone tablets they carved the records into are lost somewhere.
I was going to say, there is microfilm at the library, Coach, so maybe that's what I'll do in the off season for you.
There you go. But as we talk about our record book, there are records in there from the 30s, 40s, and 50s as we go through. So we set a lot of records this year. And for our parents and grandparents and long-term fans that watch, I'm going to mention some of the people that we beat for these, which are kind of interesting. So this year, Fred set the school record for rushing touchdowns with 4. He broke his own record. He's had 3 a lot of times, but he got 4 against Howard Payne. We set the longest rush record. David Brandenburg's ended up being scored as a pass. So I have Hovards crossed out, but that would be the longest rush in school history was Fred's 70-yard run against Denison. He beat a chap named Leo Chafin, who ran for a 58-yard run in 1950. So Fred's run of 70, and Fred beat 50 at this year several times with his long run. Our longest modern run had been 57 yards by Dylan Wilburn back in 2013. So I got to update my own updates because I do have David here as the longest reception. Passing yards in the game, Brian Hicks had the record at 371 against River Falls in 2015, and Fred beat that out this year. Passing yards per attempt, Fred had the record against Texas Lutheran in 2017. He beat his own record against Howard Payne this year. Yards per completion, Fred set it twice. He had the record before against Texas Lutheran in 2017. He beat it against Denison, then beat it again against Howard Payne. Average yards per reception, we ended up with a pretty cool tie. So with Davis' 91-yard touchdown reception against Howard Payne, he had an average that game of 43.3, which ties Landry Bray's mark of 43.3 against TLU in 2017. Now, we had debate about whether David's play was a run or a pass. So the fact that they end up tied, I think, is poetic justice for Landry. That since we don't know for sure if that play should have been a run or a pass, they can share that record for now. Of course, he mentioned the longest reception of 91 against Howard Payne for David. That did break Landry Bray's 80-yard touchdown record from Texas Lutheran a year before. So Fred set the total plays record twice this year. He was tied with Brian Hicks when he got 70 against Hardin Simmons. He broke that record with 71 last weekend against Texas Lutheran. In total offense, Fred again breaks his own records, 446 against Howard Payne. That wasn't good enough. A week later, he racked up 582 against Texas Lutheran. Fred had the record for yards per play, gains per play, and he broke his own record against Howard Payne. All-purpose yards. All-purpose attempts, Dylan Wilburn had that record in 2015 against East Texas Baptist. Fred set that against Belhaven. Longest interception return, Tyler Frisbee had a 47-yard touchdown return in our conference championship clinching game in 2016. Some folks maybe remember that play. Early in the second half, it really put the game away. Aaron broke that record with a 68-yard return against Texas Lutheran. Now, that was also the most return yards by Tyler Frisbee, and Aaron broke that. Most tackles, Aaron Robinson set that against East Texas Baptist in 2016, and a really good freshman, Evan Villastrigo, had an unbelievably good game, 17 tackles against Howard Payne. You could argue we let Howard Payne be on the field too long for him to get that many tackles, Maybe I'm making that argument, but that takes nothing away from Evan's game of a school record of 17 tackles. There's 3 on here that I missed the first time around. I had to get you the slides in time to insert them into the show. Fred set the record for most rushing attempts against TLU, broke his own record from a year ago, most rushing yards in a game. In 2017, Fred ran for 201 in 2 consecutive games. This year he ran for 287 against Belhaven. Will Herbst also broke the record for most kicking points. Luke Fierst had 10 against Howard Payne in 2017, and Will had 11 against Texas Lutheran last week. He had 8 extra points and a field goal. So some single-game team records. Team record for passing yards against TLU, yards per pass attempt against Denison, interception yards, pass breakups against TLU also. Yards per there's more I missed. Yards per completion against Denison is not listed on the graphic. Average yards per play, we set a record against Howard Payne. Highest punt return average, we set a record against Howard Payne. And then kick return average of 40.5 per return, a really good game against Denison, are all new team records at Southwestern. Individual records, we'll continue to move through these pretty quickly. Rushing attempts, Fred broke his own record this year with 232 attempts. Rushing touchdowns, he broke his own record with 16. Passing touchdowns, he broke his own record with 19. Pass efficiency, he broke his own record with 162.3 efficiency. He also broke his own record in yards per pass with 9.45. He broke his own record in yards per completion. Yards per catch, our school only asks for a minimum of 5, which means that Kalen Heim is currently the record holder with 25 yards per catch, and number 2 right now is Tavon Gwynn, 21.5. They beat out Landry Bray's old school record of 21.4 from a year ago. Fred broke his own touchdown responsible for record. He broke his own record for total offense per play, as did Kalen Heim, who outdid Fred with 7.75 yards per play. So we're really anxious to get Kalen back from his knee injury next year. Kalen Heim also broke Fred's record from a year ago of all-purpose yards per game with 128.6. Again, Kalen's also really good. Scoring, Fred broke his own record with 96 points. He broke his own record of touchdowns scored with 16. Aaron Robertson set our interception return yards record, beat Tyler Frisbee, we mentioned that. And then 4 other guys in school history had ever returned an interception for a touchdown. This year, Aaron Robinson and Joel Heideco both did that and are tied in the record book there. Season school team records, we tied our record for rushing touchdowns from a year ago at 27. We set the new school record with passing touchdowns at 20 and receiving touchdowns at 20. Field goal percentage record of 67%. Interception return yards, we beat that old record from 2016 with 182. And we tied our record with 2 interception returns for touchdowns. Also missing from the graphic, yards per punt return with a really big game against Howard Payne. We upped that average to 7.8, which edged out our record from 2015. So again, the school record book, not just from 2013 on. We've got some 1950s, 30s, 40s, 50s records that have been shredded. Okay, so the career record book, kind of fun to look at. Fred's got another year left. Here are some of the things that he holds a school record for: rushing yards, rushing attempts, rushing touchdowns, rushing yards per game, completion percentage, passing efficiency, passing yards per game, total offense, total touchdowns, total offense, all-purpose yards, points scored, touchdowns scored, bags of popcorn popped, and number of buses driven. He also has the lead in all those categories. But other guys are doing great also. Some really cool things here. David Brandenburg, yards per rush. He's our all-time leader at 7.1 yards per rush. He's also our total offense per play leader, getting almost 8 yards per play when he touches the ball. So it's going to be great to see him with the ball next year. Austin Emery got in. He's right now, he has just enough yards to count for yards per completion. So he's a little bit ahead of Fred, the young freshman quarterback that started the game against ETBU, played the whole game against McMurray, is averaging 15.9 yards per completion, off to a great start. Luke Fierst, who had a solid season again, is our kicking leader. In every kicking category, he's been our most prolific guy. Extra points made and attempted, extra point percentage, field goals made and attempted, and field goal percentage. And we talked about the interception return touchdowns. Not a lot of those in school history, and Aaron Robinson and Joel Heideco did that this year. Some senior performances. And there's a lot of guys on this list that if you ask me are going to be all conference. I think A.J. Daniels is the best tight end in our conference. He plays the most attached tight end. It's a world of hybrid tight ends. They play in the slot. They play as fullbacks. A.J. will put his hand on the ground next to the tackle, and he'll run and block people from that position. And I think he's the best in our conference doing that. Landry Braid doesn't have the biggest stats, but he's the best blocker in our conference, and he's the most physical perimeter player in our league. He would be hurt really bad about Thursday every week. He's a 170-pound guy, and he will run into you as hard as he possibly can every play of every week, and I think he's one of the best in our conference. James Matt was all-conference last year. The guys on the right, the offensive linemen, they don't get stats. They're the unselfish guys. Offensive line stats, you know what those are, Rob? Those are the scoreboard, right? It's the wins and losses are their stats. I think James will be an all-conference player. I think David Alvin Quinton has a good chance to be an all-conference player. But as you look at some of these things, Markel Henderson is leading as the school's third in rushing for his career, 4th in rushing attempt, 5th in rushing yards. Just a great career. A.J. Daniels, 5th in touchdowns. Landry Bray, 4th in receiving yards, 5th in yards per reception. And then we have those 4 offensive linemen who have all started a lot of games for us, played a lot of positions. And Corey Vega had an injury-plagued career. And one of the coolest things of the game Saturday was we got him in for a play. He wasn't cleared. Don't tell the doctor. Don't tell anybody. We snuck him in for a play at the end, and on his last day, senior day, we were able to get Corey in. And he was another really good senior for us. So thanks for humoring me, folks at home. Moms and dads maybe liked it. I'm sure Fred's grandma watching us in Louisiana didn't have any problem with that segment, hearing about how great Fred's doing. But so many great things within our conference. Excited to see the all-conference team. Excited to see the all-region and all-American team. But we continue to progress our football program and stack up winning seasons. And I think it was important for me to take some time today to, I guess, be boring to some folks, maybe not, and talk about what we're doing. And the last graphic, I wanted to round it out with that. The Southwestern man is who we are. And we talk every week about football, and we talk about plays and X's and O's and this and that. But the point of Southwestern football is for our players to become Southwestern men and for them to have these virtues. And you can't be everything. But we want our guys to be loving, mature, committed, sacrificing, passionate, relentless, courageous, and honorable. And there's never been a mom or a dad that said, my kid's not coming to Southwestern. I don't want him to be those things. There's never been a player that said, Coach, I'm quitting your team. I don't want to be those things. They're not, they're not religious. They're not political. There's not too many people that are going to argue with that. And our seniors that are leaving are Southwestern men. They have all those attributes, a great senior class, and we're really going to miss them.
We absolutely will. Well, Coach, appreciate the fine presentation that you put together. A lot of accolades there that definitely wanted to make sure that we mention. And what a special way to end the season with those seniors with a big win versus Texas Lutheran. You just got to take care of business, and Southwestern did that, and it was exciting. So, Coach, we're going to take a very quick break. I know it's a little after 7 o'clock. This is the last show. We do have some final comments that we want to ask you, some final questions as we wrap up the season. SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin continues. Stay with us, friends. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being with us here this season. It's been an exciting season. And, Coach, before we get started, I just want to say thank you for the privilege this season. For us, it's never a right to broadcast. It's a true privilege, and thank you for the season. But So many great memories this year for Southwestern. I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't know if you could do it in one word, but, Coach, one word to wrap up this season. I'm going to throw one on you.
One word? No, I don't have one word. I don't have one word. Demolition TLU is pretty fun. How about that?
There you go. Demolition. Well, Coach, this season, many ups and downs. We saw some great players get injured. Some players came back. We saw Kalen Heim with a knee injury, but then other players able to step up. A little bit about your young defense. I think they learned a lot this season. Can you mention a few things about those guys?
We had as many as 4 freshmen on the field at times, which is really hard. And we mentioned Corey Vega being injured. We had games where we didn't have a single senior on defense. That's hard. We mentioned also the 5 elite offenses we had to play. If you put some of the guys with Louisiana College's talent, the 4-star kid from Florida State, for example, into that group, they had to play some really good guys every week. And they were diligent. I think that's a good way to describe them. They were also very they had a short memory. You know, they'd come back every week. They'd come back every play. They'd come back every drive. And they had some great performances, though. We talked about the epic performance against Sul Ross where they held them in negative rushing yards, the tremendous performance against a great offense against TLU. So I'm very proud of them. It's very tough. There were guys on the field, and Coach Kreese will tell them all the time when we talk the defense, like, older guys, I'm talking to you because the freshmen shouldn't even be out there right now. They're just trying to survive, so to speak. But I think overall they did a really good job. They're undersized in a lot of areas. We have to work on that. Not just because we're young. We have some older guys that need to get bigger to be able to hold up a little bit more. But I thought our defense did a really good job. They had a tough outing every week. There's no easy offenses in our conference.
Coach, one final question from me before I'll let Galen ask you a few. What's something that you want to say to your departing seniors this season, Coach?
Well, hopefully they all know what they mean to me and what they mean to our football program, and I really mean it when I said in the last segment that they're Southwestern men. They do things the right way. They've been tremendous leaders, tremendous work ethic. It's rare, I think, in my years as 11 years as the head coach. This may be my favorite group of seniors, which may make some people mad at me, I guess. Usually there's at least one guy where you don't see eye to eye with, right? He's ready to be done with me. I'm ready to be done with him, so to speak. That's not the case with these guys. I think if they could stay and play forever, I think they would. If I could have them stay and play forever, I would love to have them. So it'll be sad to say goodbye to some of these guys for sure. All of these guys, not some of them. Tough to say goodbye to all these guys.
Galen?
Just to put in perspective, what happens now between now and the start of camp next fall?
Recruiting is the main thing. So all of our football coaches are out recruiting right now off campus, and I'm doing some things from back at the home base, I guess, on campus. But we're identifying guys that are going to become our next group of players for Southwestern. Of course, our players are going to resume training really shortly. We give them a couple weeks off between the end of the season and Thanksgiving because they need to recuperate. They need a little bit of time away. They need to refresh mentally and physically, but they're going to get right back into training. We're going to get right back into training them. So it's those are the two main things. We'll get into spring ball in March and April and May. But recruiting now and then training our athletes as we go through is the name of the game. It's the process and the cycle of football.
It changes a little bit every year. But where is the prime recruiting area this year? Is there a prime recruiting for a D3 school this year?
Texas.
Yeah, but as far as in Texas, is there any particular?
Yeah, the big part.
The big part.
Historically, we've gotten the biggest groups out of Houston. Last year, I think our biggest group was out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That may ebb and flow. In Texas, when we started here, there were 1,210 high schools playing football. I know because I sent every coach a postcard the second day that I worked at Southwestern. Now we're up to about 1,400, more than 1,400 schools that play football. And that's why of the 247 Division III schools, probably 180 of them try to recruit in Texas. Just like Division I schools and Division II schools and Division III schools, this is a great place to find athletes. And it's a challenge because we're not only recruiting against all the Texas teams, we're recruiting against all the high academic teams nationwide that want to come in and take guys away from us. But fortunately, there's a lot of guys that want to be here. You know, they want to be in Georgetown. They want to stay in Texas and have their folks come to the games. And being a Texan, playing in Texas is important to a lot of these guys.
If you could add anything to the process of these shows, what would you like to add? Would it be a grease board, something where you could illustrate things, or what else would you like?
That's a good question. You know, I'm not quite in the process of breaking down the broadcast yet and figuring out where to go from here. But that's a good question. I'll put some thought into that.
Awesome.
I would, you know what I want to add? I want to add where all the experts in the stands come up on the grease board and draw the plays.
There you go.
the ones that they don't think work, or the ones they think we should be running. Yeah. You come on over here on Thursday. You get on the grease board and you draw up for me. The last time, Marissa's going to hide her hands, but some friends of ours took us to a UT game last year, and I'm sitting in the stands with some friends. And there's this guy in front of me who obviously should have my job because he's really smart at football. So I had a program. I just opened it to a semi-blank page, handed him a pen. I said, "Could you draw for me what it is you're talking about?" He didn't say a word the rest of the game. Marissa's hands are literally. And I didn't tell him who I was or what I thought my knowledge base or frame of reference may be. But when I'm watching that game, I see it a little bit different than Yo-Yo down one row from me sees it. So there you go.
Yeah, you should have been here at the old Eagle Field years ago, where they set the Sun City people right in front of the press box, in front of the coach's box and everything. And a run would fail, and they'd chime in unison, "Throw the ball, coach." Yeah, and then it would just reverse itself.
There's a really good job board that the NCAA has, and so does the American Football Coach Association. So all the expert coaches can get their resumes out there and go get their coaching jobs, and then I'll come to your games. And I'll encourage you.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your accessibility this year. Thanks for taking it easy on Chuck, too. I think he had a great time this year
Chuck
down there.
did a great job down on the sideline, absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you this year, Coach. Again, it's been a privilege. And our job in the broadcast booth is to call the game, so you won't ever hear us saying, well, why did they do that? We may say that about the opposing team, but never for you, Coach. So,
well, you can ask me. I have a reason. I'll be able to tell you.
Well, Coach, again, just final thoughts from us. Thank you again for the privilege. Thanks to everyone at Southwestern University. It's been our true honor and privilege this year to bring you Southwestern University football here on SHN Sports. Looking forward to chatting in the next couple of months about how we can bring this production back and increase it next year. But again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much here from SHN, Coach. It's been a fun year. And thank you to everybody. Can we please give a round of applause, everybody in the audience? You guys clap. Thank you guys for coming out this season. Thank you to the Sheraton. One final time for the Sheraton. Thank you for hosting us. Galen, it's been a pleasure working alongside you this year. From all of us at SHN, of course, Carl here tonight, and then our Southwestern University SHN sports family, Mickey Holden, Nathan Height, David England. I'm going to leave out somebody. Chuck Cracy, Michael Francis, Joshua Harris. We had a multitude of folks helping us out this year. We couldn't have done it without them. So thank you to everyone who came out and helped us. Coach, as we sign off one final time, want to remind you that we're not strong enough alone to make it on our own. We need each other. Provide a word of encouragement. Lend a hand of support. Somebody tonight needs you. Thank you, Coach. Good night from Georgetown, Texas. We'll see you next year.